Escaping abuse, a predicament for women. According to a 2017 Centers for Disease Control report, 52.4 million women have experienced some form of physical abuse in their lifetime. This abuse can come from a partner, such as a spouse or a boyfriend. Regardless, if it comes from a partner, it is labeled as intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence traps millions of women inside of their homes where they should feel safe, but inevitably feel endangered. Now, it's easy to ask the question, why not just leave? Why not get a divorce or break up and escape the abuse? Well, the ask is simple, the answer is much more complicated, as there are major barriers preventing women from leaving. These barriers fall under two major categories. The first being social norms, both internal and institutional, and financial concerns for their well-being outside of the relationship or after leaving. On top of that, women who happen to be undocumented immigrants face another layer of struggles. The current support system for undocumented women is the U visa. The U visa provides temporary citizenship for victims of violent crimes. However, as Susan Pierce and Natalie Sokoloff from the Sociology Forum point out, the U visa requires extensive cooperation with the police, which undocumented immigrants naturally distrust due to their immigration status. This, as Vladislava Stoyanova from the European Journal of Law and Migration states, often leads them to decide between being deported back to their home country where conditions are often far worse, or staying in an abusive relationship in the US, where they often choose the latter. So this begs the question, how can the federal government help empower women, both illegal immigrants and naturalized citizens, to leave intimate partner violence? For the government, an entity, to easily and truly create success for women, there must be reforms to policies to strengthen them. These reforms can fall under the social, economic, or institutional category. The first type of reform is the social reform, but first we must discuss the social barriers. False hope syndrome is a term coined in a Harvard Business Review article, The Dark Side of Resilience. It essentially dictates that when somebody's put under extreme trauma, they sometimes tend to develop too much resilience or become overly tolerant to negative behaviors like abuse. This causes many women to remain in abusive relationships thinking it is their task or their job to change their abusers and fix their abuse. This often leads to a cycle of self-blame, where they blame themselves for their own abuse, thinking it is their responsibility to fix the abuse and change their abusers, when in reality they cannot. So to change this mindset, anti-abuse media needs to be promoted, whether it be in TV shows, radios, or even like an ad in a gas station. By promoting more anti-abuse sentiment, surely over time, the mindset that they must change their own abusers will be changed. As Leslie Steiner, a former victim of abuse, put in her 2012 TED Talk, the easiest way to solve abuse is by shining a spotlight on it. However, there are many limitations to social reform, the mainly being how costly it would be. It is estimated to run a high production ad, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that is only one. To effectively communicate change, there need to be multiple ads which would cost lots of money over time. The second major barrier is the economic barriers. According to Jessica Eckstein from the Journal of Family Violence, many times abusers control the financial situation, which leaves many women with little confidence in themselves financially after leaving the relationship. In fact, it is shown that 52.7% of women believe that they had nowhere to go outside of an abusive relationship. So to combat this, microfinancing-based assistance can be done. Microfinancing provides small microloans to impoverished individuals and allows them to get an education or learn everyday trades so that they can make their own money and become financially independent on their own, eventually empowering them to leave abusive relationships. In fact, when this was conducted, a microfinancing study was conducted in Africa by Julia Kim et al. From the American Journal of Public Health. They showed a 50% decrease in intimate partner violence after 1 year of microfinancing. However, the limitation to economic reform is the money has to come from somewhere. Whether it be from charitable donations or hike in taxes, people would have to dig into their pockets to pay for these economic reforms. The third major barrier are the institutional barriers, whether it be from childhood misconceptions about what a healthy relationship is defined as, or the reservations that immigrants may possess about existing institutions. To combat the childhood misconceptions about what a healthy relationship is, abuse education programs can be implemented in schools. According to Michelle Lloyd from Frontiers in Psychology, after a 6-week education program was instituted at a 1,200 student school, there was a significant drop in the acceptance of abusive behaviors from their students. And if more immigrant support systems that are not dependent on citizenships are implemented, like the Violence Against Women Act or just community support shelters, undocumented women would surely be more inclined to seek out the help rather than fearing deportation. However, the main limitations to institutional reform is the political controversy it would cause. As we have seen in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill, parents are not comfortable with their children being taught potentially uncomfortable topics. And this would eventually also allow undocumented immigrants to exploit the processes provided for naturalized citizens that were not given to them. So what is the next step? The next step is to implement some of these policies, not all of them, as it is impossible to implement every single policy listed. But a combination of policies from the economic, institutional, or social categories all combined together would create lasting change and empowering women.
Okay, my first question is, what evidence did you gather that you didn't include, and why did you choose not to include it?
Well, I had a lot of evidence about cultural or religious factors keeping women in abusive relationships, but it was hard to tie in reforms that the government can make to religious or cultural norms because it's very difficult to create legislation surrounding religion and people's personal beliefs.
Okay. And what are the implications of your findings to your community?
Well, abuse is a pretty stigmatized thing, even for the people experiencing it, so they commonly feel ashamed and don't want to speak up about it. But like the Leslie Steiner TED Talk has stated, the more we as a community talk about it, the more women will feel empowered to speak up on their own struggles in their home life.
Yay!